Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stan Houston, and I have the privilege and even the pleasure of hopefully getting to talk to you for a few minutes every work day for interesting ideas. You know, one of the signature lines that I've always had for many years is this: fear kills everything. And there's a real story behind that. Fear does kill everything. And right now, there's a lot of fear going around. The economy, recession, all kinds of situations, the poor leadership and governance throughout the world. The world is in a mess, and we are probably going to get caught up in a significant part of that mess. And how can we not be a little bit fearful, be afraid? Well, fear kills everything. And some of the greatest people I have known and do know are those who are fearless. First of all, they have less fear. They fear less. But I have also known some remarkable people who literally have no fear of anything. Nothing can hurt them. Nothing can harm them in the sense that they would be harmed. Yeah, that's what has happened to them. Incredible people. Very ordinary people. So if you'll permit me, we're going to go into lesson 2 of Make Good Friends and Make Your Mark. Making good friends and make your mark is our update of the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People. And we've been working on this for a number of years, and so I'm going to go back to a little presentation I did about 5 or 6 years ago, and we're going to go to just that topic. Lesson 2 is Fear Kills Everything. Thank you for taking time to listen to it. It's only about 14 minutes now, and then I'll have a brief note at the end. Let's continue now with lesson 2. Now, our very first principle, be one of the 3%, can be literally a life-changing and empowering idea, something that you live with almost in a regular part of how you go about your day. Whenever you're making plans, whenever you're thinking about what you should do, you say, will this help me reach some of those significant goals that I've put down, that are in my notebook or in my heart, mind, and spirit? That kind of strategic way of thinking about your life and your business becomes a habit that will begin to guide you and make many of your decisions much easier in life, because you know who you are, where you want to go, where you want to land up, and what you want to achieve. Life becomes a lot less complicated when you live like one of the 3%. And so when we're going to make good friends and make our mark and live successfully, principle number 1, the first thing, be one of the 3, is vital. Now here's the problem. Something's going to rear its ugly head when you start to live that way with greater intensity. And it's something we deal with all the time. It's the fear factor. And so here is where we go right now. Don't let fear kill your chances, your opportunities for true success. Now, the story behind this is a number of years ago, a group of us were together at a party, and one of our friends, who was a very successful person, I mean, he was a successful salesman, he had a great job, made lots of money, had a lifestyle to match. All of a sudden, he kind of stopped the conversation by saying, "Let me tell you something, folks, I finally did it." "What did you do?" "I quit my job." "What? You quit your job?" Well, that kind of shocked us a bit because, like I said, he had a great job, made lots of money, a lifestyle to match. He had a wife and 2 children. "Well, you got another job?" "No, I quit my job. I'm going to start my own business." And a lot of us were, wow, That's kind of a startling statement. And then we began to talk about that and, well, what are you going to do? What if it doesn't work out? And then all of a sudden he just stopped and says, stop that. Don't do that. Don't you know that fear kills everything? Don't you know what that does to me, what that does to us? Fear kills everything. Now that was many years ago. And that scene and that statement has stuck with me for many years. Fear kills everything. And I began to realize how much fear had been a part of my life. And I still find it true today that facing some decisions that I was kind of raised, as I said, by a group of parents who worried and had a lot of anxiety. And that may even be a part of my personal and emotional DNA. It certainly is a part of the programming and the tapes that came into my heart and mind as I grew up, And so, how can I deal with the fears in my life so that I can have less fear and reach out and risk more and take greater opportunity for the things that come to me? And in doing that, I discovered that fear is the big thing. How many fears could we have? Somebody said, well, there are 700 different fears. And then I read another source that said, well, if you count all of the phobias and fears, there were close to 7,000. Well, that just simply means nobody knows. But we do know that fear is present everywhere in our lives, in our business, in our relationships. But what I discovered is that there are really 5 big fears that we have to work with. Because if we can deal with these 5, the rest become easier. Now, we're not talking about some great phobias that are deeply rooted in some psychological distress that we might have. But I'm talking about the fact that we deal with the everyday. And the first great fear, we all know this, and particularly those of us in more advanced and successful developed societies where we don't want to be poor. We don't want to run out of money. Now, a lot of the world, people have to learn to deal with that, but right now, in many of our societies, the fear of losing our job, losing money, not having enough money, not being able to get the things we want or even need is scary. I remember one time I was talking to a business executive, and his particular division was going through some real difficulties, and he was wondering what might happen to him. He says, I was driving down the street coming home, and all of a sudden to the side I saw a group of kids having a wonderful time. They were playing with an old refrigerator box. Somebody had just gotten a new refrigerator, and they left the box outside and gave it to the kids. And you know what kids do. They make little huts out of it or fortresses, having a wonderful time going in and out of the refrigerator box. And he said, all of a sudden I went into a panic attack. I literally went wet with sweat because all of a sudden I had a vision of myself being homeless and living in a box. He said, totally irrational. That probably is not going to happen. Wow. And I simply said, that's because one of our great primal fears is to be poverty-stricken. And so many of us do not take opportunities or do not take the risks that are before us because we are afraid of poverty and loss and homelessness. And I'm not minimizing that, but it's good to understand whether that would really happen to us or not. The fear is vital and primal and with us all the time. Second great fear is the fear of failure. We are an achieving society. We just talked about that. Failure is not looked favorably upon. We don't say, oh, he failed so well. No, failure, we feel, well, then we'll lose our job. Then we'll be poverty-stricken. Then we'll be poor. Then we'll be home. You see, the fear of failure builds on and adds to the fear of homelessness or poverty, because if we fail, something bad's going to happen to us. The third great fear is the fear of rejection. Wow, does this walk into our lives? We won't be selected. We'll ask for a date and we'll be rejected. We'll seek a promotion and be rejected. We'll apply for a job and we'll be rejected. We will seek admission to a social circle in some way and we won't be accepted. We will not be selected. We will be rejected. And even though that sales manager might say, well, don't take it personally, just get over rejection, that's easier said than done. Rejection really hurts us. Now, I wish I had great solutions for all of these things, and there are strategies. This could be an entire course, and I actually have one on fear. But the point is, I want you to be aware that these things come into our lives. The fourth great fear is the fear that we have no value. Because we have no value, then obviously we'll be rejected, and then we'll be a failure, and then we'll be poverty-stricken. And it kind of works this way. For a number of years, I lived somewhat in the neighborhood of a major auto assembly plant. And so many people throughout literally 3 generations had made a good living by working at the auto assembly plant. Good job. But every once in a while, there was a rumor that the plant might close down, and of course that the manufacturing would be offshored or go to someplace else. You know how that works. Whenever that happened, there was a little bit of rumor panic that went around the community, the grocery store, the churches, the things that were in the neighborhood. And I remember one guy said to me, Stan, I don't know what I'd do. I've worked at the plant for 32 years. If I lost that job, that's all I know. That's all I can really do. And he was incredibly fearful because he could not see that he had any other value or worthwhile abilities. At the same time, I had another friend that was in my church, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, yeah, I certainly wouldn't like it, but let me tell you, Stan, I've taken my time. I know a lot about cars, and I am a great mechanic. I just don't build these things. I understand these things. I can fix them. I'm good at that. I also know how to plumb. I do a lot of plumbing for my family and friends. I'm a great plumber. All I would have to do is take a test, and I could be a licensed plumber, no problem. I help a number of the older people in church. I paint their houses. I'm a great painter. I'm a great handyman. And we all knew that. He could fix anything. He could build anything. And he simply said this, Stan, I'm very much convinced that if that happens, I will find some place where I can make money. I have a number of abilities that I know that I'll be okay. Now, do you see what had happened? That fear of not having any value had gone away, or was significantly reduced. And that's why when Dale Carnegie says self-confidence is vital, that's what he was talking about. That's why if we have more and more self-confidence, we will have less and less fear. And so if we have a number of competencies, if we're good at a number of things, if we're good at personal relationships, if we know how to publicly speak, we will have far less fear in our life. The final fear is one that we just may have to deal with in life, and that's the fact that, we're going to get old, we're going to get sick, and we're going to die. Ernest Becker, in a classic book called The Denial of Death, said that overcoming the fear of death and disease, if we could really deal with that, so many of our other fears would be reduced. A good book to read sometime. I know people who read that book every year just to learn from it. And I remember a story one time where a man was talking about the fact that as a real young man, right out of high school, he was on the Normandy D-Day invasion, and he hit the beach, and he got into a firefight. Most of the young people that he was with were killed, and for some reason, he escaped. And he said, the reason I escaped is there was some older German soldier, saw this young kid and literally scared to death, and he just told me to roust. He said, I knew the rest of my life I should have been dead. I should have died in Normandy. And I had survived walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And he said, a lot of things happened in the last 40, 50 years, but I knew that nothing could be as bad as what I had gone through before. I also know a lady who's gone through the fear of have been healed, gone through the valley of 4th stage cancer, and she's okay. She has escaped death for this time. But you know what? That woman has no fear. She has been at the very depth door of all fear and has overcome it. She's fearless. She really is. And she says, I have a new zest for living because for once in my life I know that whatever comes, I can handle it. I can handle it. And being able to say, I can handle it, is one of the things that will help us make good friends, make our mark, and live successful. So I would just simply ask you to take some time to think about these 5 fears and think about how you might have some strategies and ways of living, talking to yourself, putting things into your life that will help you live with less fear. Because we do not want fear to steal, to kill your chance of true success.
And there you go, and I'll let it set. I can help you. By the way, if you'd like to know more about how perhaps you could get some of these lessons as we put together or participate in building the program and the book called Making Good Friends and Making Your Mark in the Marketplace Today, reach out to me. StanHouston@gmail.com, StanHouston@gmail.com. There are ways that we could begin to present some of these programs to you and your colleagues, and I guarantee you it will be really good for them. It'll help them to think like entrepreneurs, to have some real courage that they didn't know they had, and also at the same time be higher performers. They will become one of the 3%. Can you just imagine what it would be like if every one of your colleagues were just like that? Strong, confident people who knew who they were, knew what they wanted out of life, knew where they were going, had a plan and a strong sense of purpose, which, by the way, a strong sense of purpose has now demonstrated that that's what depression is usually about, and that drugs won't fix it. But a strong sense of purpose and direction and plans many, many times will be, quote, the thing that will at least diminish and perhaps help us in our depression. So don't be afraid. Don't fret. All will be well, and we'll carry on. Again, reach out to me, StanHouston@gmail.com, StanHouston@gmail.com. And we'll be back with Lesson 3 tomorrow.